All right, guys, welcome back for another episode of Shedcast, the shed hunting podcast. Today with us, we got Josh Hubbs coming out of Arizona. We're finally catching up. We've actually done a little bit of hunting together earlier this year. He just got back from a hunt out of country, actually. But Josh, introduce yourself real quick, and then we'll see how some of the stuff went for you.
Yeah, so my name's Joshua Hubbs. 27 years old. I'm a diehard archer, shed hunter, outdoorsman. Absolutely love doing that. And like you were saying, I just got back from a hunt in New Zealand, and yeah, that was a blast.
Yeah, the pictures you're starting to put out look pretty cool, man. The terrain is just so different, huh?
Dude, I don't know if you know, but Lord of the Rings was filmed over there, and there's a lot of dude, it looks so unreal. It's like mythical lands and everything else. It's pretty sweet.
And super green, too, from the pictures you posted.
Yeah, it's green, and then you got all the brush is real tall. It's like the grass. When you see those photos, like the grass fields, the grass is actually like 3 feet tall. So it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, that's wild. And the rocks and stuff look pretty cool. And
Lions and
then,
rocks.
how long have you been here in Arizona?
I've been here 4 years now.
4 years.
Yeah.
And you're about to wrap up out of here too, so that's getting
Yep.
interesting.
As soon as the HR department opens up for the new job and can get my paperwork done, I'll be moving on over there.
Nice. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I'm definitely glad we got to go out that one time. That was pretty fun actually. And then just while we were sitting there glassing and that we both turned and that deer just disappeared.
Yeah, out of nowhere.
Didn't even hear it coming up, and all of a sudden we hear just a small noise, and we look back, and it's just a poof of hair and dirt floating in the air.
Dude, like a cartoon, like when they run and like the shadow of their dust is still there. It was exactly like that.
Yeah, that's so funny, dude. I've been trying to get you on here for a while, like even before we ended up doing that stuff, just kind of reached out to you a while back, like, hey, let's get you on. I mean, you're putting out great content in general. You've made a name for yourself coming from, a hunting background, and where we'll actually get into that too, actually where you're from, and then just kind of how you started. So that's pretty much where I wanted to start, is just how you got started in just hunting in general, and then how that translated into just wanting to do content.
Yeah, so for me, hunting started at a young age. My dad would take me around in a backpack when I was little and take me with him on hunts. And that's kind of where the obsession started because I was always out there with him. I was always running around with him. And then he was very much so a rifle hunter. He did archery before I was born, but once I was born, pretty much rifle hunting is far as I can remember. From there, I started progressing into hunting myself and I started rifle hunting alongside him and I wanted another challenge. So that's where I come from for my archery aspect of things is started off with the rifle, always had an obsession for something a little bit more challenging and it was archery. And then I got into archery. And when I got into all of that and taking photos and doing photography, it's kind of like, shed hunting coincides with hunting. And it's like in the off season, what was I going to do? Well, I'm going to shoot my bow and go shed hunting. So yeah, everything kind of just wrapped up in one there as I slowly progressed into it as I got older.
Yeah, no, that's pretty cool. And then most people don't know like your day job that you do too, but aside from that, like just making a name for yourself in the industry can be pretty tough. So, and I've kind of seen your content for quite a long time, even honestly before I even had this podcast going, I would follow your content and stuff just in general, just from liking it. But when you started that, do you have any challenges that you had to overcome with any of that, or just, I know it's tough making a name for yourself when you're starting with nothing.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, I'll keep it kind of vague, but right now I work for the Department of Homeland Security here in Arizona. That is my 9 to 5 job. And then outside of that, photography is just kind of a side hobby, honestly. I just take it out there on my weekends when I'm just out doing things that I love to do and have a passion for. And then it kind of morphed into just taking photos of them and then running from there, going into photography for hunting and everything else. Dude, the balance between the two is pretty tough. And I gotta say, like, anybody wanting to get into the outdoor space, be that marketing or just photography or videography, like, there's a lot of people that have cameras. There's a lot of people that can film a hunt, but there's not a lot of hunters who film other hunters because usually if you're the hunter, you're like, oh, well, I want to be filmed. It's really nice to have a hunter film another hunter. I could pull any Joe Schmo off, but they're not going to know how to hunt. So having the ability to hunt and film and photograph just goes tenfolds further in this little niche that we're trying to fill here, right? I would also say like don't don't expect to get paid right off the bat. In fact, I would just expect not to get paid and just start figuring out your creative style, your look, your kind of like get opinions from people that you like or their content that you like already. Kind of just build up from there. And then, like you said, like you'd been following me for a while even before you had this podcast. People will see you, they'll see your work, they associate the work with you. Eventually, it'll get reposted a few times. And then once you start building up a name for yourself and you see that your content's being shared, at that point in time, you'll have a company reach out and say, would you do this for me? Or would you want to do this for free product? And then start at the bottom. You got to start free and then work your way up, because nobody's just going to be like, hey, here's $3,000, do these photos for me. I trust you. Like, you got to be able to, first, they got to see the work and know that you're worth that price. And then secondly, that you're going to be able to provide what they want for that product. Yeah. You got to start at the bottom, start free, and then work your way up.
Yeah, and not being afraid to grind without that. I mean, even with this podcast, I don't expect anyone to give me anything for free. I'm just starting the content and delivering, and hoping that just like everyone gets something out of these stories, or anybody that I talk to, more or less, is kind of the goal for me, is just passing on like stories and education and just the pure love of hunting and shed hunting in general,
Biggest tip is just network. Honestly, go to SHOT Show, go to ATA, go to all these big like outdoor shows and just network with people and network with local people, because you never know, somebody might be out there like when we got to go hunting together and stuff. Like, you'll just build
hmm
connections that way. So definitely reach out. Don't feel like you can't reach out. In this community, I would say everybody's pretty helpful, and definitely reaching out will help you in the long run. So networking's
Yeah,
key.
you'll wind up at dinner shaking hands with people you don't even know who have such
Yeah.
big influence in the industry.
Yep.
That's cool though. No, and that even landed you some good gigs, like you were talking about. Okay, I mean, they trusted the work that you were putting out, and then it landed you right smack dab in some of the biggest brands and companies within the industry, which is pretty cool. If you're willing to talk about any of that, just opportunities that present themselves when you're actually putting your work, like quality, good work out there.
Yeah, so it's kind of a rough time frame, but if you think about this, man, we're in 2025. It'd probably be like 15 years ago is when I picked up a camera and started taking
hmm
photos, as well as like started to get real serious about bow hunting. And from there, now we fast forward to present day, and I
hmm
had my first ever fully sponsored hunt, and it was in New Zealand with Red Stag.
hmm
I never thought in a million years that I would get to that point where there would be a cameraman with me, and I had Jake Belinda. He's an absolutely amazing photographer. He got
hmm
sent out there with me, and yeah, never in a million years did I think I'd be on the other side of the lens or even have an opportunity like that. But I balance the 9 to 5 and I work, so I'm kind of burning on both ends. Where some of these guys, they can show a lot more work because they just do it full time, and my time frame might be a little slower than others who have just all the free time to just show their content straightforward, like Martin Chegg. I mean, that guy grinds and it
hmm
shows, and then he gets the sponsors there to show that as well. But
Yeah.
yeah, here I am 15 years later doing a hunt and working with some amazing companies. And it just shows, don't give up and just keep grinding. And eventually it gets there.
Yeah, and I 100% agree with that. The grinding part, man, you are a grinder, and a lot of people won't see that, but I've been able to witness that firsthand. And you're going from what we're doing out in the field hunting straight back to get ready for work, to go right back into work the next day. And then as soon as you're off again, you're bouncing out of town, doing a hunt or a film, coming back, getting that job again. So it's a grind for sure. But a lot of people probably don't even notice that going on behind the scenes, because you're putting out so much content in general that it looks like you're living that lavish life, but you're really just grinding your butt off for it, which is cool to see, or to even know about that. So hopefully people that are listening or something see that, and then realize that, they're, if they're willing to put in that work and grind for it, there's opportunities that'll present themselves just like that. Might not be overnight, but that's what it takes.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. A lot of people hit me up in the DMs and they're like, man, must be nice to be a full time hunter and all this and that. And I'm like, that is not my full time. If you knew how
Yeah.
little I actually get to hunt myself, is I, like, even filming, this is my 5th September that I have not been able to hunt for myself since I've been here in
hmm
Arizona. So I missed 1 year when I wasn't in Arizona. And in the 4 years
Hmm.
I've been there, I haven't had a hunt in September, but that's because I've been filming for other companies. And, like for me, it's like, okay, I could go hunt, yes, or I could go film. And when I get to film, I get to go to new places that I wouldn't go otherwise. I also get to see the same thing that I'm going to be hunting, but in a new environment. And I get to learn from all these guys as well as network with them. And to me, it's been huge. I've had some awesome experiences and can't thank everybody who's given me an opportunity enough for the opportunity.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's kind of like once you jump that from when you're going from hobby to career, balancing that act, it becomes where you got to sacrifice even more than you would think sometime, or even for everybody listening, man, you got to sacrifice to get where you want to go. And that's just, there's no cutting corners when it comes to that. So you got to give up your time and in order to get some, essentially,
Yep.
that's the way I look at it, at least, is if you sacrifice enough time, effort, and work that you're putting into it, eventually, hopefully it pays off. And then when it does pay off, it pays off really well to where you're able to do something like that, or someone really does come out of the woodworks and wants you to represent their company or something like that. That's the goal ultimately, obviously, but the work in itself is also the fun part too. I know you enjoy it too, so it's not like you're just putting it out there to try to make a buck.
Yeah, no, I'm out there just for straight passion and love for doing it. And it might sound crazy, but a lot of these hunts, when I go out there, especially like this year when I was out there with Eric and those guys, I was like, hey, look, I know I'm out here as the camera guy, but I'll take as many packs as I can. Like I'm here to work too. And for me, that's the fun part of it. Like I went on a hunt with my buddy this year late. It was in November, and he got
Mhm.
his elk down. I was like, "Hey, you just go ahead, go get the side by side. I'm here to pack and work, and like, yeah, the fun part's over, but this is where I want to be now." And yeah, I'm out
Yeah.
there. The work, the hard part, the heavy packs. That's what I like.
That's when the real work starts. So that's what separates the who's there to crack open a beer or who's there to throw in some work.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. But getting into the shed hunting, we haven't had a chance to go shed hunting. Hopefully we can get one before you end up bouncing out of here. But let's talk a little bit about that. You've had your fair share of shed hunting in multiple states, obviously from where you're from and then to where you're at now. So you have experience with it. So with your experience with it, how have you done? Do you like picking up deer? Do you like picking up elk? Is there any preference, or you just kind of go for it and pick up what you can?
If I had to choose, if we were gonna say as in deer, if we were just gonna say whitetail versus elk, I would choose elk all day long. But when you
Hmm.
go elk and mule deer, man, that's a tough toss up for me because it's really hard to beat one of those really nice, non-typical big mule deer sets or even just a
Yeah.
single shed. So that I don't know if I could decide. But if you're going whitetail versus elk, yeah, I would definitely go elk all day long. And yeah, I've
Yeah.
shed hunted from Kentucky all the way over this way to Oregon, Idaho, Washington, New Mexico, down here in Arizona. So been around and shed hunting for lots of different species, but by far my two favorite are gonna have to be elk and mule deer.
Yeah, and with that, I mean, it translates so much into hunting as well. Have you noticed that? Like when you're shed hunting, the intel you can gather, whether it's postseason or even just from sheds, translates right back over into hunting.
Yeah, so especially out here in Arizona, I've noticed that the shed hunting here can really help you, especially during season. These elk don't seem to travel as much. We don't have as harsh of a winter here. It really depends on water. Water seems to be the biggest driving factor here in Arizona. So yeah, if you can find animals, sheds in that area, typically they're probably going to be in there during season, or at least those late season hunts. You'll be able to go back in there and locate those
Hmm.
bulls.
Water has been such I feel like that's going to be pretty key this shed season, honestly, here, because it's been so dry. Very little moisture, very little snow, really, even up in those countries, like in northern Arizona, where we're normally getting most of the snow. But which is kind of strange too, because even just a few weeks ago when we finally did get rain, it was kind of cold enough where there was snow like in these little East Valley mountains, which was very rare to get snow that low in the desert. So it's so opposite sometimes. But for the majority of January during OTC, man, that was rough when it was so hot and dry, when it's normally a lot colder than it was.
Yeah.
But and then with shed hunting in general, like if you were throwing some tips out to people that are just starting or just listening and they're trying to get better at it, What kind
Yeah.
of things would you do based on your experience with picking up in multiple different states? And well, let's just say elk sheds. For picking up elk sheds, what kind of tips would you throw out there for people that are trying to figure it out or trying to find more?
Yeah, so I mean, I break it up for Western versus Eastern, and my Eastern's a little like rusty on the knowledge because I haven't been over there in quite some time. But on the West side, I mean, if you're Northwestern, snow and snow lines are huge. Getting the right face of a mountain, getting on the right ridges, finding the snow line, and there's definitely an elevation. Like cool thing is like Onyx, you can get in there now on their online version, and you can just like hyper focus in on those on their 3D map. But you pull up maps, figure out the slopes, and get those slopes right and correct, and then figure out that elevation band and kind of just fluctuate in there or follow the snow line as you go across. And I'd say that's pretty common for deer, elk across the board in that area. When you drop a little further south and come down this way, I really think water is a huge driving factor just because we don't get as much snow as those other
Hmm.
places. And if you think about it, here everything's pretty wide open, so it's a lot of wind blown and all that. So typically you would assume that these elk are like up on these high ridges and everything else. What I've seen here is a lot of things seem to drop down into these canyons, into these cuts, into these nasty pockets. I think personally they go in there for shelter, but there's also you got to think about this too. You need food, shelter, and water. That's what they need to survive. So
Hmm.
when it comes to wintertime, they're going to those things, and all the bottoms down here hold water. Usually there's some form of a creek or something. So down this way,
Even that heat too, like the
yeah,
heat,
yeah,
those
yep.
creek bottoms, they can get out of the heat a little bit.
Yeah, so escaping that and everything else. That's just what I've seen here. It seems to be kind of hold fairly true. They're going to be near some source of water. They don't really stray far from that. But then if you go over to the east side, deer, it's bedding areas, trails. You got fences and creeks. I mean, those are still great spots to check out here. But where the whitetail are more prevalent, there's just more
Hmm.
common areas where you find like there's a down log and they jump over it. There might be sheds there, creek crossings, sheds, fences, sheds, bedding areas, because as a deer gets up, they shake their head. If they're in a bedding area, it's usually fairly thick, and where it's thicker, they just have greater chance of something getting knocked off their head. So those are kind of the areas I would focus in on, or at least I do focus in on when I pop up to a new spot and I'm like, where am I just going to look for a shed? If I only have a set number of days to find sheds, I'll just hyper focus in those areas.
That makes sense, especially out here. Have you done a lot of whitetail hunting when you were out here, like more Coues whitetail rather than like Eastern whitetail?
Yeah, I've chased some coos a little bit. Man, those things are tough. They're way
Yeah.
smaller than they look.
Yeah. And finding those antlers are tough too because they're like, I don't know if I have glassed up a few, but it's like harder to glass them up because they're so much smaller. And then just depending on where you're glassing from, if you're glassing up a mountain, it's going to be a lot harder than glassing from a really high peak, glassing down on one.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
those
Yeah.
things do. I know I try to tell a lot of the Eastern guys or some of the guys that we talk to on here just the difference between those whitetail and like some of the Eastern whitetail that are living along like ag and all that different. It's just a totally different ball game, which every single area you go into has its own different challenges, whether that's hunting or even shed hunting. But the country they live in will make you work for it. That's for sure.
Yeah, one thing that I think is pretty funny and I see a lot of happening this day and age is, I mean, you've got a lot of these guys going out there, big names that go out there, they backpack in, they go way in deep. And it seems the trend now is for a lot of people to try to push in as far as they can, as deep as they can. Man, so many people overlook the easy spots. Like, they're like, oh,
Hmm.
somebody's already been there, or oh, no, that's too close to a road, or that. Like, that, if I were to give like a little bit of a tip that you might think, not a shed, easy spots next to a road. Sometimes if you just do a quick little walk, you'd be surprised what you pull out in places where you think everybody's already looked.
Yeah. And there's a reason why people still find road sheds because they're walking along them or crossing them. So they're definitely no spot you can check off the list that they're not going to be. That's always something I feel like I've noticed too, up around some of the mutual places that you and I have talked about, where it's like some of these mountain towns and stuff, animals tend to hang fairly close to cities. And then the further you get out, sometimes they're just, where the heck is everything, and they're all back there hanging out by the city, sometimes in the middle of it where they can't be chased or their antlers are going to fall off in somebody's yard that's feeding them. But that's a great tip though. Those overlooked spots, I feel like in general for hunting is a really good tip because like you said, people just drive right by something thinking there's nothing there, or somebody's already checked it off the block, but everyone's just flying right past it and there's deer laying right there off the side of the road.
Yeah. Yeah, well, my biggest Arizona elk shed set is right around 350, and that's with a 35-inch spread, just kind of guessing. And that bull I found 200 yards away from a main road that you can drive on. And there's like, the main road is like north to south, right? And there's a ATV trail that cuts east to west.
Mhm.
And that's on one side of the canyon, and then on the other side, there's no trail on that. All I did was go from the ATV trail paralleling the other road and come up the other side, boom, right there. And I should have been able to glass it across the way. I just wasn't paying attention, didn't pull my binos out. I was just walking to walk. And then when I came up the other side and looked, they were just laying there side by side in the wide open, bleached out. And I was like, no way did nobody see this.
Yeah. That's so funny. That actually happened to me too. It was one of the spots I picked. I pulled into a spot I wanted to shed hunt. There was a truck or two, I think, already there, and I was like, "Oh crap! This is where I drove a few hours to come shed hunt this spot." So instead, I just went, "Well, I'll just go on this side, basically across a blacktop road. I'll just go on this side." So I went down the road, probably a, a mile maybe. Found a spot to pull off, parked, hopped the fence, and then started hiking up. And I started getting into like a lot of signs. So I'm like, and there's like a lot of sign kind of along this like cliffy rock. And so I'm like, well, I'm just gonna keep walking along and see. And then boom, same thing. I walked into a set, saw one, and then I was walking towards that, and then out of the corner of my eye to my left, see the other side, and I'm like, oh, heck yeah. So
Heck yeah.
that made for a nice day. And then it's just like I wasn't even planning on coming that way. I was actually gonna go to that other spot, so that helped me out. And then I was actually not even there for that specific face of the mountain either. I was hiking that ridge to get over the top of that, and then the backside is where I wanted to look at anyway. So I ended up picking those up and looking over the backside, and I never found anything else that day. But there was still so much sign in there, and I still haven't even been back. I'm like, I still need to get back in there and keep walking around in that spot, because I think within that spot I had found two other sheds that were all very close to each other at different times. So it's like they're all hanging out or crossing in this area, particularly. So, and that's just the way it goes. Sometimes you got to just get them where they're at, not where you want them to be. Sometimes
Yeah, I agree.
it's just kind of the way it goes. But where can everyone follow along with you, so that way, just in case, I mean, it's probably rare that people don't know who you are, but just in case there is anybody out there listening that doesn't, where can they find your content so they can follow along?
Yeah, so I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, and it's just Hubs14, and it's HUBBZ 14. That will be my Instagram, and I think TikTok is just Hubsy 14, so just a Y at the there and then 14.
Yeah,
Keeping it
cool.
crazy.
Yeah, at least it's similar across the board. So it's like you find one, you'll be able to find the others
Yeah, yeah. If you can find
and
one, you
keep up with
definitely
it.
find the other.
Yeah. But all right then. Yeah, man, I appreciate you coming on. We'll hang it up here. That way we can you can get back to your night. But I appreciate you coming on, having a little conversation. Even a little short, dense one works out for everybody too. So I appreciate it. Thanks
Yeah,
everybody for listening. And Josh, thanks for coming on.
right on.